Welcome back. The African Union has called on leaders to remain calm following strikes on Iran by the United States and Israel. The AU warned the conflict would affect people worldwide, including in Africa. AU chairperson Mohammed Ali Yusuf said restraint, urgent de-escalation and sustained dialogue are needed. He warned that further escalation could worsen global instability and disrupt energy supplies, food and African economies. Now, for more on this conflict, we are joined by a chair of Middle East Studies at Dixon College in Pennsylvania, Dr. Mireille Rebeiz, as well as Professor of Military Science at Stellenbosch University, Professor Abel Esterhuyse. Thank you so much to you both for joining us for such a very important conversation. And I would like to start with you, Professor Esterhuyse, here back at home. We just heard what the AU had to say regarding this. What do you think the impact will be on the African continent and specifically for South Africa, considering our relations with Iran and our relations with the US as well? All right, it seems that we have lost the Prof over there. We will try and re-establish that line. But Professor Rebeiz, if you are with us, Professor Rebeiz, just wanted to know, just off air, we were talking just now about what a time to be alive. Are we heading for another world war?
First, thank you for having me. I hope not. I certainly hope not, but definitely the situation is very volatile. So far it seems to be contained between the United States, Iran, Israel, and the Arabian Peninsula, but in countries like France, Spain, England immediately put out statements denouncing this war and making it clear that they had no part in it. It's in part to signal that they're not party to the war, but however, as far as I read a few minutes ago, it doesn't seem that there is any intent for de-escalation, and it seems that it's going to be going on at least for a full week. And in that case, because it's volatile, other parties might get involved. It also all depends on what the Security Council decides. It's meeting tonight, so it still remains to be seen. But definitely the situation is volatile and not exclusive to the region.
Yeah, not exclusive to the region, as we're seeing also other parts being affected by this as well. But it seems that US President Donald Trump is headstrong on this, saying that regardless, this is an ongoing and massive operation. So regardless if the AU or European Union or other countries are against this, this seems that it will go ahead anyway.
Yes, absolutely. Unfortunately, in the United States, we're dealing, and not just in the United States, unfortunately, we're dealing with three powers that are known for severe abuses of human rights. President Trump has been engaged in the strikes, illegal and unlawful strikes against Venezuela, also what's happening with Cuba, and now in the context with Iran. Israel is involved also as well with the ongoing genocide in Gaza and the clear intent to annex the West Bank. And the Iranian regime is a terrorist regime, and as of January, we had at least 300 people that were executed, including children. So we're dealing with three powers that are really strong, heavy on weapons, but also that have no intent to let diplomacy happen and determined to go to war, irrespective of the intention of other people or how many civilians die in the process.
Yeah, and it's quite heartbreaking to see that part of those civilians is actually a primary school as well, where young children were also killed. Professor Esterhuyse, I think I have you back on here as well. The question I was posing to you, to just bring it back home, to say that the AU has called for calm, but also saying they are concerned about how this could affect other regions, including the African continent as well. Should this continue, how will this possibly affect South Africa and the African continent?
Well, it's a difficult question to answer, and it depends very much on how long the process is to unfold in terms of the military part of the process. And then, of course, the outcome of the process, what the strategic effect will be of the military action, firstly, and secondly, what will be the effect thereof inside Iran as well. Let me say that I think the Trump administration have used the excuse of nuclear power and missiles here to bring about regime change in Iran, I think. And it is pretty much predicated on the idea that the Iranian people will rise up against the regime. I don't think the Americans have think beyond the use of air power, and they're not thinking about boots on the ground in Iran. And I doubt whether we will see a regime change through the use of air power if they are not really succeeding in decapacitating the regime in its totality. Then the reaction would be perhaps not against the Americans and the rest of the Middle East per se, but against the people of Iran. And that will be a disastrous outcome for this military action. But yeah, it depends very much as to how long the war is to continue and the outcome of the campaign if we talk about Africa.
And Prof. Esterhuyse, while I have you there, you know, social media is quite an interesting thing. That what's been hauled out are old tweets by Donald Trump, and I'd like to read some of them to you. I mean, this one is from 2013, where he says, the president must get congressional approval before attacking Syria. Big mistake if he does not. There's another one that also comes from 2013, where he says, be prepared. There is a small chance that our horrendous leadership could unknowingly lead us into World War III. Now, looking back, and there's a barrage of these kinds of tweets as well from his timeline from around that time, 2012, 2013. Looking at what's going on now in 2026, I mean, talk about irony.
Yeah, it is irony, and the President of the United States is actually not allowed to declare war without congressional approval. And so Trump ought to be very, very cautious in how he sort of present the military action against the Iranians. And the use of the word war itself is by itself a huge predicament for the Trump administration, and he should go to Congress to ask for authority if he wants to and if this is going to unfold into a larger military action.
Yeah, Dr. Rebeiz, you know, there is an urgent UN Security Council meeting that's going to be taking place today. What can the UN Security Council do, also considering that America is one of the 5 countries that has veto power, so that they can actually overrule whatever the UN Security Council says? So where does that leave us, and what can they do?
Unfortunately, the Russia-Ukraine war has shown us the limitation of the Security Council. Since Russia also sits on the Security Council, we also see this limitation when we had a repeated call for ceasefire in Gaza, and the United States consistently vetoed this. So I would not be surprised if we do not head to a deadlock again tonight. Unfortunately, I'm not expecting much from the Security Council in terms of a resolution, an imminent resolution tonight. To be very honest, I'm not. And I just want to add to what my colleague mentioned, perhaps discussing more internal affairs to the United States. I fully agree that we are in the realm of unconstitutionality within the United States, but also part of me feels that this is also a distraction in the United States to what's happening internally, to all the violation of law that President Trump is piling up, including the Epstein files.
Absolutely.
And I hear you agreeing there, Prof, with what Dr. Rebeiz have to say about this being a distraction as well when one looks at the Epstein files, and also, of course, the midterms that are coming up in November.
Yeah, I think there's a number of higher order questions hanging in the air here. The one is to what extent the United States is still seen as sort of the authority that ought to police the free world, and to what extent the United States have become a bully state, if I can put it like that. And then the higher order question pertaining to where the US have been successful in changing the regime without leaving the place in chaos. We've seen what Iraq looked like after they withdrawn in Libya and other places. And then eventually the question as to whether this action by the Americans will improve the life of the of the average Iranian citizen. And I have serious questions in my mind as to whether that will be the case here.
Yeah, and Dr. Rebeiz, you know, when we're talking about the realm of unconstitutionality, we saw what happened with the invasion of Venezuela, and when we talk about a regime change there where its leader was also captured. There are unconfirmed reports, and Dr. Rebeiz, I would like to just reiterate, these are unconfirmed reports that the supreme leader of Iran has been injured or killed. What kind of a regime change, and we're listening to Professor Esterhuyse, who is also reminding us of the history of what happens when there's a regime change with US intervention, would there be in Iran? And what's going on right now with us not knowing what's actually happening with their supreme leader?
Great questions. A couple of different observations here. I fully agree that the United States consider itself the power that polices the world and ensures democracy, which does not sit well when you look at the record. As my colleague here mentioned, Iraq, Libya, I would add also Afghanistan. It doesn't sit really well. And experience tell us that bombing a country from the air is not necessarily going to lead to a change in the regime, unless we're really talking about a ground invasion, and that will be a game changer for the Iranian. Having said that, it's in terms of the leadership, I do not think, like you said, the reports, it's inconclusive. We don't know if it's confirmed yet or not. But irrespective if it is true or not, the regime in Iran has been decentralized, meaning that even if the killing of the one leader happened, it doesn't mean that there is a leadership fallout that's going to follow immediately. Having said that, it depends on the will of the Iranian people internally as well. But the taking out of one leader from the top or two does not necessarily mean that the regime is going to crumble just by being bombed from the air.
And just briefly before I let you go, Dr. Rebeiz, when Iran aren't sitting ducks, they've already retaliated, of course, to this attack too. And Donald Trump has said that this will be ongoing. So there will be, I'm assuming, another attack. So when does this then end? Because I don't see Iran taking the same approach that Venezuela did.
No, absolutely not. I mean, the structure in Venezuela is completely different than Iran. I honestly think we're going for a war at least a week. And here's why. When the attacks happened in June, they were always followed by statement and the attack is ended, or this attack, there's going to be no more attacks. Just quite a little bit ago, Iran said there's going to be a retaliation. And the Arab countries, even though some of them, like I read that Qatar is calling for still diplomatic solution, I do not think that they're going to just be sitting ducks and waiting for Iran to shell them again. I do not think we're heading toward de-escalation or diplomacy anytime soon, unfortunately.
Sure. Interesting times. Prof, thank you so much for joining us. That, of course, was the Chair of Middle East Studies at the Dixon College in Pennsylvania, Dr. Mireille Rebeiz, as well as Dr. Esterhuyse from Stellenbosch.